My name's Ryan Caldwell. I'm 24, born and raised just outside of Portland, Oregon, and until last autumn I'd have said my life was almost painfully predictable. Wake up, run along the Willamette, head to my job as a junior marketing associate at West Coast Horizons, come home, cook something passable, scroll through photos of places I'll probably never visit. Safe, routine. But all of that changed the weekend I drove up to Seattle for a corporate retreat that was supposed to foster interdepartmental synergy, and instead cracked my life open. This is the story I've never told anyone. I call it, she said. I know you're here for my daughter, but maybe stay for me. I was invited to the retreat because I'd helped close a mid-sized client. Nothing glamorous, just a sustainable clothing brand launching in the Pacific Northwest. My manager, Laura, congratulated me in her brisk way and told me to use the weekend to network. Ryan, what she didn't say but I sensed was that she wanted me to meet our new partner, a boutique PR firm run by an industry legend named Helen Whitaker. Helen's daughter, Mia, had just joined her firm after grad school. Rumor in the office was that Helen was grooming Mia to take over someday. Rumor also had it that Mia was brilliant but aloof. When I arrived at the Whitakers' lakeside property, not a hotel, but their actual home, a cedar-sided modernist house perched above Lake Washington, I felt like an interloper. Sunlight spilled across polished concrete floors. A minimalist staircase floated upward. Outside, sleek boats rocked against a private dock. It didn't feel like a corporate retreat. Felt like a movie set. Mia was the first person I saw. She was standing near the kitchen island, dark hair in a loose knot, scrolling through something on a tablet. She glanced up at me, smiled politely, a flash of warmth, then back to cool professionalism. You're Ryan from West Coast Horizons, right? She said. That's me, I answered, adjusting my overnight bag like it was a shield. First time at one of these, synergy weekends. She laughed. A soft, low sound that made me feel less like an intern and more like an actual person. My mom believes in immersion. You'll get used to it. Her mom appeared moments later. Helen Whitaker was nothing like I expected. Mid-50s, tall, with the kind of presence that makes a room recalibrate. Not movie star beautiful but striking, silver-streaked hair. A sharp blazer over jeans, eyes like polished steel. She clasped my hand firmly. Ryan Caldwell, she said, as though my name meant something. I've heard about you. Come in, relax. We're informal here. Informal wasn't exactly the word I'd use. Everything was choreographed, wine glasses aligned. A playlist of unobtrusive jazz, seating charts for dinner. Still, the place buzzed with possibility. Over the next few hours, I noticed something odd. Helen watching me. Not in a predatory way, more like a professor studying a promising student. Whenever Mia and I spoke, Helen's gaze would flick between us, measuring. Later that evening, after a long session on cross-brand storytelling, we broke for dinner. I ended up seated between Mia and Helen. Conversation drifted from marketing trends to travel. Mia told me about her semester in Barcelona. I told her about my grandfather's hardware store and how I'd paid for college stocking shelves. You're not like most of your colleagues, Mia said softly, while Helen was distracted with the server. You actually listen. Something in her tone was wistful, curious, couldn't tell. After dinner, people migrated to the deck overlooking the lake. Strings of Edison bulbs cast a warm glow on the water. Someone uncorked another bottle of wine. I slipped away to call my friend back in Portland. When I returned, the deck was empty except for Helen, leaning against the railing, staring at the dark water. She didn't turn when she spoke. You and my daughter seem to get along. I hesitated. She's easy to talk to. Is she? Helen's voice carried a faint smile. She's brilliant, yes, but easy? Not always. She finally faced me, eyes catching the light. You're different, Ryan. I notice things. A chill moved through me, though the evening was mild. Notice what? Helen stepped closer, not invading my space exactly, but close enough that I caught the scent of her perfume. Cedar, citrus, something darker underneath. That you're sincere. and that you have no idea what you've walked into here. I laughed nervously. It's just a retreat. Nothing is just anything, she said, still smiling, especially in business or family. Before I could reply, Mia appeared at the sliding doors. Mom, the group wants you inside for the presentation. Helen's expression shifted back to hostess neutral. She touched my arm lightly, a fleeting, almost imperceptible brush, and went inside. That night, lying in the guest room with the lake lapping outside, I couldn't stop replaying her words. No idea what you've walked into. What did that mean? Was it about a business deal? Some office intrigue? Or something else? At breakfast, Mia was quiet, focused on her phone. When our eyes met, she gave me a half smile that didn't reach her eyes. You okay? I asked. Yeah, she said. Just tired. But her fingers trembled slightly around her coffee cup. The day's sessions blurred, brand integration, influencer mapping, endless jargon. By afternoon, my head was pounding. I went outside for air. That's when Helen found me again, standing under the pines near the boathouse. Ryan, she said softly, walk with me. We strolled down to the dock. The lake was slate gray under a sky about to rain. She stopped at the edge, facing me. I need to tell you something, she said. You're here for Mia. I get that. Everyone's always here for Mia. But maybe stay for me. Her words landed like a stone dropped in deep water. What? I managed. She smiled faintly, but there was tension in it. A flicker of vulnerability that startled me more than the words. Just think about it, she said. Think about what you really want. Then she turned and walked back up the path, leaving me staring at the ripples spreading across the lake. That evening, as the rain finally began, I stood at my window watching droplets race down the glass. Below, on the deck, Mia and Helen were arguing low, urgent voices I couldn't make out. At one point, Mia gestured toward my room, her expression sharp with anger or fear. Helen said something, then stalked inside, slamming the door. I lay awake half the night, listening to the house settle, wondering if I'd become part of a story I didn't understand. A story that might cost me more than I'd ever planned to give. The next morning, the sky had cleared, but the house felt heavier, like the air after a thunderstorm. People were milling about the kitchen, getting coffee and bagels before the last workshop. Mia wasn't there. Neither was Helen. Laura, my manager, clapped me on the back. Great job this weekend, Ryan. Make sure you get a few minutes with Helen before we go. She's influential. I mumbled something about needing fresh air and slipped outside. The grass was damp, pine needles sticking to my shoes as I walked down toward the boathouse again. The lake was calm now, a glassy expanse reflecting the blue sky. Mia was there, sitting cross-legged on the dock, hair loose around her shoulders, staring at nothing. She jumped a little when she heard me. Hey, I said softly. Mind if I join you? She nodded without looking at me. I sat beside her, leaving a polite distance between us. For a long moment, the only sound was water slapping the dock. You okay? I asked finally. She let out a breath. My mom can be intense. I noticed. Mia gave a humorless laugh. She built her firm from nothing. People worship her. But when you're her daughter, it's different. Everything's a test. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, knuckles white. She likes to control the narrative, she said, even when it's about other people's lives. A chill slid through me. Mia, last night on the dock, she told you something, didn't she? Mia's eyes snapped to mine, fierce and searching. I hesitated. She said, maybe I should stay for her. Mia closed her eyes like she'd been expecting it. God, she rubbed her temples. I'm sorry. She's complicated. I don't understand what's happening, I said quietly. This was supposed to be a retreat. Nothing with my mom is just business, Mia murmured. Before I could press her, voices drifted down from the house. Laura calling for me, telling me the next session was starting. Mia's expression hardened, the mask sliding back into place. Go, she said, We'll talk later. Inside, Helen was at the head of the long dining table, leading a final discussion on authenticity in branding. She looked like she hadn't lost a minute of sleep, crisp and commanding. But when our eyes met, there was something else there, a flicker of challenge or invitation. All through the session, my mind churned. Why had she said that to me? Was it a test of loyalty? Some twisted mentorship? Or something personal, something forbidden? Afterward, as people packed up, Helen caught my elbow. A word. We stepped into a quiet hallway lined with black and white photos of her career highlights, product launches, award ceremonies, glossy magazine spreads. You look unsettled, she said softly. You put me in a strange position, I replied. I came here to work, Helen. She tilted her head, a slow smile curling. Did you? I felt heat rise to my face. I respect your daughter. I respect you. But whatever you're trying to do, I'm not trying, she said, voice low. I'm telling you the truth. You're different, Ryan. You have heart. People like you get eaten alive in this world unless someone protects them. That doesn't explain what you said. Helen's smile faded. She looked, for a moment, almost sad. Sometimes the person who needs protecting isn't you. Before I could ask what she meant, Mia appeared at the far end of the hall, eyes flashing. Mom, we're leaving. Helen straightened, the mask snapping back on. Of course. Safe travels, Ryan. She brushed past me, her perfume lingering like a question I couldn't answer. The drive back to Portland was a blur. My phone buzzed with work emails I ignored. All I could think about was Mia's haunted expression and Helen's cryptic words. By the time I reached my apartment, the sky was dark again. That night, Mia texted me. Thank you for listening today. Be careful. No emojis. No explanation. Just that. Be careful. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. Anytime. Are you okay? No response. Over the next week, back at the office, whispers spread that West Coast Horizons might be merging with Helen's firm. People speculated about who'd get promoted, who'd be cut. I kept my head down, but part of me was waiting for another message from Mia. It didn't come. Then, on Friday evening, my office phone rang. Helen's voice, smooth as ever. Ryan, she said, we're hosting a small dinner tomorrow. Just a few key players. I'd like you to come. I almost said no, but something in her tone, softer, almost urgent, made me pause. Will Mia be there? I asked, a beat of silence. Yes. The dinner was at a private room in a downtown hotel. Candlelight, linen tablecloths, the faint clink of cutlery. Helen sat at the head of the table, radiant in navy silk. Mia sat at the far end, tense, eyes down. Between courses, Helen rose to give a toast about new beginnings. Her gaze swept the table, but when it landed on me, it lingered. After dessert, she caught my eye and tilted her head toward a side door. Against my better judgment, I followed her into a quiet corridor lined with mirrors. I'm glad you came, she said. This isn't appropriate, I said softly. Your daughter. She's stronger than you think, Helen cut in. Stronger than me. She texted me to be careful, I blurted. Helen's eyes widened just slightly, then softened. Good. She cares about you. I don't understand what you're doing, I said. Helen stepped closer, but this time there was no predatory edge, just exhaustion. I built an empire, Ryan, and in doing so, I hurt people. Mia sees that. She hates me for it. She should. But she also doesn't know how deep it goes. Her voice cracked. I'm trying to keep her from making my mistakes. And maybe I saw something in you, a chance to give her someone decent. Or maybe, she trailed off, shaking her head. Maybe I just wanted to feel like someone could see me beyond the empire. The corridor felt suddenly too small, the mirrors reflecting our faces back at us. Hers lined with regret, mine with confusion. You don't need me for that, I said gently. Helen closed her eyes, inhaled sharply, then stepped back. You're right. Go to her. I blinked. What? She's waiting, Helen said, voice steady now. Don't let her believe I've scared you off. I found Mia outside the hotel, standing under an awning as rain fell on the street. She looked up when I approached, eyes searching mine. She told you, didn't she? Mia asked. Not everything, I said. But enough. Mia let out a shaky laugh. Enough to run? I took a breath. No, enough to understand. For the first time since I'd met her, Mia's face softened fully. No masks, no tests. Just a young woman tired of holding the weight of her mother's empire. I don't know what happens next, I admitted. Me neither, she said. But maybe we start by not letting her decide everything. A taxi splashed past, scattering rain. We stood there, two people on a wet sidewalk, the city buzzing around us, the air smelling of rain and possibility. That night, as I lay in my apartment staring at the ceiling, I thought about Helen's words, about Mia's quiet strength, about the way power and love can twist around each other until you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. I realized that sometimes the most radical thing you can do isn't to choose between two people or two futures, but to choose yourself, your integrity, your honesty, your capacity to care without being consumed. And in that realization, a kind of peace settled over me. 2 months passed. The merger went through. Helen's firm became the West Coast Horizon's Strategic Communications Division. The office buzzed with rumors, promotions, and restructurings. Laura moved to a new role. Helen split her time between Seattle and Portland, sweeping through our offices like a storm system. And Mia? She'd taken an apartment downtown, away from her mother, and begun carving out her own space in the company. A small but growing portfolio of clients she handled without Helen's oversight. We saw each other for coffee, sometimes for late walks along the river. Nothing dramatic, nothing labeled, just two people finding their footing. Still, Helen's presence hovered. Even when she wasn't in the room, her influence was. Meetings shifted when her name came up. Emails carried a subtext of fear or awe. And sometimes, when my phone buzzed late at night, I half expected it to be her again. It never was. One rainy Thursday, Mia and I sat in a tiny cafe near her apartment. She looked lighter than I'd ever seen her. Hair in a loose braid, eyes bright. I'm pitching my own client next week, she said. No mom, no board. Just me. That's huge, I said. You'll crush it. She stirred her tea. You know, for a while I thought I had to save her. Prove to her I could do it her way. But I can't. And maybe I don't have to. Her words struck something deep in me. I'd been holding on to the idea that I needed to fix something too. Her family, Helen's cryptic pleas, even my own self-doubt. Mia, I hesitated. Do you ever think about that weekend? About what she said to me? Mia's eyes softened. All the time. She wanted you as a shield or a bridge or who knows. But you didn't let her decide for you. That matters. I exhaled slowly. I'm still figuring out what I want. Me too, she said quietly. Later that week, Helen called me into a conference room after a long planning session. She closed the door and for a moment just studied me. You've done good work, she said. I can see why Laura trusted you. Thank you, I said cautiously. Helen leaned on the table. I crossed a line with you at the lake. I know that. I wanted something, clarity, redemption, and I tried to take it from someone who hadn't agreed to give it. She looked suddenly older, the weight of years pressing on her shoulders. You didn't deserve that. I swallowed. I appreciate you saying that. Helen's lips quirked in a faint smile. You're steadier than you look, Ryan Caldwell. Don't lose that. Not for me, not for anyone. She gathered her papers, straightened, and walked out. No grand gestures, no veiled invitations. Just a woman acknowledging her own fault and leaving me the dignity of my own path. That night, Mia invited me to a small art opening her friend was hosting. We stood shoulder to shoulder in a converted warehouse, sipping cheap wine from plastic cups, surrounded by canvases splashed with color. A jazz trio played softly in the corner. At one point, she turned to me, her face lit by a string of warm bulbs. I don't know where this goes, Ryan, she said, but I want it to be real. No power games, no saving each other, just real. I felt something unclench in my chest. That's all I've wanted. She smiled. A true smile this time, not the guarded one. Then maybe we start here. She reached for my hand, and I let her. Not as a savior, not as a prize, just as two people choosing to stand beside each other. For however long the moment lasted. Weeks turned into months. Work stayed demanding, but for the first time in years I felt like my life was my own. Mia's pitch landed her a small but prestigious client. Helen began stepping back from day-to-day operations. And I started writing again, not copy, but stories. The kind of stories you tell yourself when you're trying to make sense of the past. Sometimes I'd walk along the river at dusk and think about that first weekend. The lake, the rain, Helen's hand on my arm. Her voice saying stay for me. The way my heart had pounded, not just from desire or fear, but from the weight of a choice. I realized that moment had been less about seduction and more about a test, not of loyalty to Helen or Mia, but of loyalty to myself. One evening, sitting at my kitchen table with a mug of tea, I wrote these lines in my journal. Sometimes the people who seem to be offering love are really asking for rescue. Sometimes the ones who seem strongest are crumbling inside. And sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is not to rush in, but to stand still, listen, and choose with open eyes. I thought about Mia's trembling fingers on the dock, about Helen's cracked voice in that hotel corridor, about my own restless nights staring at the ceiling. And I realized this was the life lesson hiding in all of it. You can't heal someone by surrendering your own boundaries. You can care, you can support, you can stand beside them, but you must also stand inside your own life, because only from that place can any real connection grow. Months later, on a clear spring morning, Mia and I drove back up to Lake Washington. The house looked different without the crowd. Quieter, almost gentle. Helen had moved out, renting it to small corporate groups. We walked down to the dock, hand in hand. The water was bright, dotted with sunlight. This is where it started, Mia said softly. Yeah, I said, where it almost went wrong, and where it also went right. She squeezed my hand. Thank you for not walking away that night. I smiled. Thank you for texting me to be careful. We stood there, not speaking, the lake lapping at the pilings. The moment felt like an echo of that first weekend, but lighter. No hidden agendas, no unspoken tests. Just two people, aware of the shadows behind them, choosing to step into the light. As we drove back to the city, wind in our hair, I felt a quiet gratitude settle over me. Life isn't a movie. There's no final scene where everything is resolved. But sometimes you get to walk out of the dark hallways and into something honest. And sometimes, if you're lucky, the story you've never told anyone becomes the story that finally tells you who you are.